Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. And today, after 3 years of absence, it is absolutely, and that was done remotely as well. I'm absolutely delighted to have in the studio today Huw Davies from Ozone API. Huw.
Toby, great to see you again.
Great to have you. 3 years, loads happening. As we said before, we were both in our bedrooms at that sort of stage, gripped in the latest lockdown, I think it was. Been watching Ozone API and everything you've been doing with a keen interest. Sounds like lots happened.
It has been, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a great 3 years. Lots of exciting growth. Businesses getting ever more global as we're seeing open banking and open finance roll out around the world. So, it's been a good few years.
I think when I think roller coaster, I think of sort of ups and downs, but it seems to be a sort of very much an up part for you from everything I've seen. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, and we're going to go through the story. The sort of metamorphosis, I guess, of the business as it continues to scale. You've had some good news recently at the start of this year where you got your Series A, some good money there with great partners from what I understand as well. We've been talking beforehand about where the business has gone, the changes to it, the board, and I guess the growing up of the business over the last couple of years. So this is exactly my kind of episode, stuff I love talking about, and I'm really going to enjoy this one. But let's for those who haven't gone back to the archives of FinTech Focus TV or joined us more recently in the journey, let's go back to talking about what you do, your why, your background, etc., etc. Give us a reintroduction to yourself and Ozone API.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Huw. My background has always been in banking and payments for the last 27 years, but for the last 6 or 7 years, been involved in the open banking space. And Ozone API started a number of years ago when myself and the other two co-founders, Chris and Freddie, were all part of the team that designed and implemented open banking in the UK. So the UK is very much the first market that did it in a regulatory structured way, and the competition regulator set up this central entity, and we were all part of that. I helped lead the development of the ecosystem, and Chris and Freddie were the guys that actually designed and developed the open banking standards, so the API standards that have become a blueprint used around the world. And we started Ozone API really for a couple of reasons. So I guess the big lofty reason is we had a very strong belief, only getting stronger, that this shift towards an API-powered financial services industry and a consent-based data sharing model would be massively transformational, not just in banking and financial services, but for economies and societies beyond that. So we started off with that very clear view, but the other thing that was really clear was banks were just finding this hard. So they had huge teams doing digital transformation and managing all of their internal systems, but exposing access to an open ecosystem brings quite a lot of complexity. There were these standards to meet, there's the consent model, all the security implications. They were finding it difficult, and there was a real need to bring some specialist technology to fill that gap. So that's what we did. We actually started, it's a bit of a side project actually, because there were all these third parties desperate to build and test, but none of the banks were ready. We built a reference implementation on top of a model bank, and that actually became the official sandbox for open banking in the UK, and it still is today. So that was the start point. But 5-6 years on, we do two things. So we provide a very specialist technology platform to help banks and financial institutions around the world deliver their open APIs. So we handle all of the hard bits, so they can just focus on exposing great open banking APIs that meet the standards for wherever they are in the world. We also work with central banks and regulators to help them design and implement this at a national level. So there are a number of markets where, again, we've helped design the framework and the standards, and we provide our technology to power infrastructure at a national level.
It's amazing how much of this sort of does emanate from the UK, doesn't it? And from what you've just been talking about there, with regards to the sort of I guess the initial framework of the blueprint being developed, from the work you guys have been doing. I love the fact that the UK has always been so central to being first off the ground with all of this and then moving it across. But that sort of also brings challenges as you look at local markets and the differential themes and regulations and everything else that are around that as well. So tell me about that sort of global journey that you've been on as well.
Yeah, so I think the UK did an amazing job in kind of creating a framework and a blueprint that other markets have built on. Yeah. And it's hard to clear the path and go first. I mean, in lots of walks of life, right? If you're hard, you're the one that has to make a lot of the mistakes that others avoid. But I think the UK did a really good job in designing a model that is working. I mean, open banking it's quite often invisible, but it's the foundations behind the scenes for a lot of financial services sort of propositions and the way people manage their money at the moment. So the UK did a great job, but open banking and open finance, which is, again, broader in scope, it's undoubtedly global now. It's happening in many different markets, all at slightly different stages, but it's happening on every continent. And what we're seeing is each market is, doing it in slightly different ways, but largely because they're often doing it for slightly different reasons, and they're able to build on some of these learnings. So it's tending to happen faster at a lower cost to the industry, and probably a little bit better because they're able to build on these learnings. So if I look at, different markets are doing it for different reasons. We've been sort of very closely involved in helping shape open banking in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia recently. Okay. And it's a really interesting journey because the whole driver is around sort of economic and societal transformation. They've got this big Vision 2030, which is about really accelerating the economy and society. And this is seen as a fundamental building block. So it's being done for reasons that everybody in the country buys into, everybody in the kingdom. So it's about driving investment, it's about creating new companies, creating talent pool growth, improving the financial services industry so that it's kind of best in class. Whereas if I look at some other markets we're working in, we've been working in Brazil, Colombia, the Philippines, over in Asia, and there's a big focus on, again, it's economic and societal transformation, but it's about bringing investment, new companies, job creation again, but with a real focus on challenges like increasing access to credit for small businesses, driving financial inclusion and financial education, stuff that has a real impact on GDP. And if countries can get that right, this becomes just massively transformational. So it's really exciting to see how it's playing out around the world. I don't think anyone's got the perfect model yet. Yeah. But definitely the UK created a great blueprint, and other markets are kind of really building on that and taking it in a slightly different direction. And how's the UK reacting to that? Because as you say, look, you can be the first mover and have the advantages and the disadvantages of that. You can be the pioneer. But as people sort of take that and add to it, sometimes the UK, I think, has been a little bit slow in sort of responding to that and lost that sort of momentum on things and sort of kept with, I guess, the sort of natural conservatism of this country in many respects, of not then building on what they're learning and seeing in other areas. How's that sort of developing? Yeah, so I would agree with you. I think overall more slowly than it should. So there's been some great, real examples of the benefits that are coming. Lots of good use cases. We're seeing, I think the recent numbers were showing sort of 9 million people are using this day in, day out to manage their finances. It's become a foundation for how businesses connect their banks with their accounting platforms. In fact, the HMRC are now taking billions of pounds of tax revenues through open banking as a payment rail. There's loads of good stuff happening. But we should have moved way beyond the initial scope of the regulation by now. The banks are probably moving slower than they would have liked in terms of then turning this into a channel that really drives value and revenue for them. But the industry, I think, is moving really slowly towards open finance and broader open data. There's some great intent, but the challenge is when you've got a number of different regulators that all need to coordinate, and I guess a national culture which is collaborative and consultative. Stuff moves slowly. We've got committees on top of committees on top of committees that are trying to work out
as well for obvious reasons, probably the right reasons in many respects.
Yeah, they created this joint regulatory oversight committee. J-Rock sounds like some kind of boy band.
I think I've
brilliant.
got the first album.
And it's creating all these committees, lots of great discussions. Honestly, I think it needs some strong leadership to step out and say, we're doing this and here's how we're doing it. And that's where I think we are seeing some other markets take, well, some markets are taking a much more directive approach. Other markets are taking much more of a market forces-led approach and saying, we want it to happen, go make it happen, and if you get it wrong, we'll come in and regulate. I sense we're caught in a little bit of limbo at the minute. So I'm confident it'll happen, but it should probably happen a little quicker.
It's forever the frustration on that sort of thing, and it's not alone, but I think it's, I do think there's mitigating, circumstances in a lot of it, and I do think, after 2008 that prudence is necessary, but I do think we just miss a load of opportunity in financial services. I've said this on the show loads. I think it took a pandemic to allow cloud to really sort of adopt within financial services, and there's just this pause that we have that sort of misses the opportunity to do all the innovation and take it further forward, on a much bigger scale than where it is. But that's a whole other soapbox which we can get into. So you mentioned the banks, etc., being a little bit slower on it all. Tell me why they should be caring about this, why it should be on their agenda, and what's happening with it.
So I've been in banking for, I hate to say, it's 27 years this year. It really is depressing. But
started young.
No, but no. Genuinely, in my career, I think this is potentially the most transformational opportunity for banks. The banking model historically it's quite a vertical supply chain. They have the license, the balance sheet, they build the products, and largely, pretty much all the engagement happens through the channels that they own, their branch, their mobile app, their website. What this shift towards open banking and open finance is enabling is for them to distribute products and services in ways that they could never do through their own channels, but also serve their customers in their own channels with far more than they could ever build themselves. So to draw a couple of parallels, if I think about what Google have done with Google Maps, they've built this incredible product, and it's pervasive. It's in so many of the apps you've got on your phone because they made a great product available through a great set of APIs that were really developer friendly, and it just got embedded wherever it added value. Now that's the opportunity. If banks get their APIs right and have great APIs that allow information, movement of money, opening of product to be embedded in digital journeys, so they're in front of the customer in the right place at the right time with the right context, that's completely game-changing. That allows them to distribute in ways they've never done before, with partners that can open up far more scale. But at the same time, banks have got these channels which have huge usage. So the mobile banking app is, behind your social media, it's up there in terms of the sort of apps you engage with the most.
Of course.
And banks know huge amounts about their customers. So if they can, rather than trying to build every product themselves, if they can piece together relevant things in their channel for their customers by connecting to other APIs in the ecosystem, that's like Amazon with Amazon Marketplace. Amazon, you can get whatever you could imagine, pretty much. But most of that inventory is managed by other retailers.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazon sell less than, Amazon manage less than half of everything that's sold through their platform. And that's the other side of it for banks. So genuinely, if this is done well, this is a complete game changer. But it's a bit of a step change. So banks tend to, it's in their nature, right, to be relatively conservative because you're managing risk, you're managing money. But we're seeing some banks really kind of grab hold of this opportunity. We're working with banks like Bancolombia in Latin America, and they've got a really ambitious and compelling vision around how APIs will create this new banking model. The UK, we're seeing players like NatWest again lead the way. So I think it's a huge opportunity.
There's definitely innovation in the UK in the banks, and I know they're going back to actually the sort of birth of new fintech, which is where people were thinking, right, these challenges are coming up to it, so we'll adopt it, we'll create innovation labs, we'll look at all this sort of stuff, and I think it sort of set banking in the UK up to think, well, we've got to be more innovative, otherwise we will have our lunch eaten, etc., etc. So they've been quite good, I think, at adopting technology, but just not quite as quick as you'd want it to be at the same sort of stage, and an opportunity at the same within that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, almost that first wave of fintech innovation, where it was challengers coming in.
Yeah.
And doing some of the same things, but a little bit better.
Take over the banks,
and it was things sitting on top of existing rails, like the card rails, to create kind of neo banks.
Yeah.
I think this wave we're seeing, these sort of open banking, open finance APIs are giving all of the banks, including the really big banks, the tools to be far more digital and embedded wherever their customers are. So I think it's a next wave, but we're early in that journey.
Yeah. And you know, those cycles can take a bit of time at the same sort of stage. And I wrote that down, what you said, the most transformational opportunity for banks in potentially in history, isn't it?
A lot of people don't believe that. I certainly do. Yeah.
You're in the right game for it at the moment, aren't you? So let's focus back a little bit on Ozone API, and we talked about this sort of transformation, this metamorphosis that you've been going through. A great deal at the start of the year with Gresham House, good partner to be getting on board with. Tell me about that process first and foremost, because securing Series A, everyone I've been speaking to over the last 6 to 12 months has had their stories about it. I know it's been a challenge. You've got a day job, a busy day job, getting on in the same sort of stage. You're having to put all this sort of thing. People have been far more prudent with their investments and needing people to go through the grind on a lot longer, taking a lot longer to get processes over the line. How was it for you?
So first of all, I think it was a really good and honestly quite enjoyable process. At the start of last year,
I'm glad someone's come. This is what I've been waiting for.
So I talked to quite a few people at the start of last year, and we said, this is a year, we think this is the right time to bring in some additional investment.
Because you've been bootstrapped all before, right?
We had, and we were very thoughtful about the timing.
Yeah.
Most people went, you're nuts.
Yeah.
The best time was previous years. Valuations were crazy, and money was far easier to find. We were very thoughtful. We've been fortunate in that we were able to bootstrap and self-fund the business because we've been pretty capital efficient, and we've got a revenue model that works. So the business fundamentals were there to allow us to,
which is what gets funding at the moment, right?
Yeah, and I think that put us in a good position. But what we wanted to do was make sure, because this is a real sort of global wave that's happening, we wanted to go out, prove we'd built the best sort of standards-based platform out there by making it stick in a number of different markets, prove the revenue model, prove all of the fundamentals, get as far as we could before doing the raise, yet trying to time it so that we could bring in the capital early enough to allow us to really kind of accelerate at the right point in time. So there's always a risk. Do you go too late, too early? But hopefully, touch wood, I think we've got the timing about right. But so we went into the fundraising process last year. We've had some great advice as well. Talked to a lot of other fellow founders and CEOs, and talked to some expert advisors. We worked with Novitas, who were great and helped us as well. The process, because we'd been thoughtful about it, we'd had a lot of time to prepare everything as well. It was actually it's one of those experiences. It's absolutely true that it is a numbers game. You hear the phrase, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs and all of those things. There are a huge amount of conversations you need to have
to get the
narrow
right
it
people
down
as much
to,
as anything else.
Yeah, you might have to have 100 conversations with different VCs to get to 10 meaningful conversations, which get to X number of term sheets. But the process went well, as expected, great opportunity actually to validate your story. We thought we had a really good story, but until you go and stress test that with people who are hearing people's good stories multiple times every day, you don't really know.
They do have it multiple times. It's amazing the numbers that they receive. I don't think people understand that. When you go in there, you think you're probably you've got this great thing and you're passionate about it. It's your baby. You're putting it in front of people, but they've got thousands of people they're seeing every single year. Pictures they're seeing every single year, and I'm often blown away by the amount of pictures that these guys are getting. And that's filtered at the same sort of stage to get to that sort of number. So anyone who I think is getting to that phase of getting the term sheets and the offers on the table, I think are doing a phenomenal job. And we've used this term again on the show a lot, that good businesses will always be able to raise money. I think at the moment you have to be a great business to be putting that sort of thing with a really, really compelling thing. So absolute credit to you and the team for that.
No, thank you. I mean, the things that were really sort of reassuring. So we had a view that this was a really exciting category. So the open banking, open finance, open data, and I think there was a lot of consensus around that. We had a view that we'd built a product that is category leading, and we have some unique and sustainable advantages. And again, that message seemed to land, and we think the business fundamentals were pretty solid. It's absolutely true that the investors we talked to, they were looking for capital efficiency, well-run businesses, strong teams. It wasn't give us a story of how you can be a unicorn in 2 years. It was, we want to see a proper business with a good team, and then we'll get behind it. But it was a good process. You learn a lot along the way as well in terms of like any sales, qualify quickly and qualify early. You quickly work out the right questions to sort of sense check where you're wasting your time. But no, it went as smooth as we could have expected. I think we were humbled by the interest in some of the offers we received, and we're really thrilled with Gresham as a partner. I think they buy into the business, and I'm looking forward to the journey together.
And so talk about that journey. So we're here and we're looking forward now. It sounds like an exciting 2024 for you. You've got some plans. Got a lot of work to do by the sounds of it.
We do have a lot of work to do, but every year it gets more exciting. I mean, right now this is happening in so many more markets around the world. The reason last year was the right time was because there are so many markets now that are moving into that open banking implementation stage. So loads going on in Latin America, loads going on in the Middle East. Got some interesting stuff going on in Asia, and the regulators in the US also came out at the back end of last year with a clear direction. So North America's about to start
that sort of stage.
Again, it's just a huge market opportunity. Also going to be highly, highly competitive and tough, but the global landscape is getting really interesting. Now, our challenge is making sure that we can scale and execute fast enough. So the raise was well timed. It's given us a lot of firepower. Biggest challenge right now is just making sure that we continue to grow the team fast enough and in all of the right places.
With the right people.
Exactly. I mean, our client base is very global. We've got, we're working with many banks and central banks from sort of Latin America right across to Australia and everywhere in between. We've got team from Latin America right across to Australia and everywhere in between. We're still relatively small, but we're growing the team very rapidly, and big kind of challenge and great opportunity for us this year is how do we, as you say, bring in the right talent in the right places, but most importantly, bring them into the organisation in the right way.
100%. I think you're talking off air, and I hope it's okay to say this, but you're talking about doubling the team and doubling the size of the business over the course of this year. And as I said to you then, I think there's companies there that have done that and sort of flown into it because they've got the money and they feel like they have to spend it, and they're sort of very quick around doing those sort of things, and they just think, right, we'll put people into it. And it's sort of that sort of cultural attrition that you see of a business, and I know you're very proud of the culture that you guys have as a business. It can be done really, really well at the same sort of stage with the right sort of processes, and particularly when you're talking about things on a global nature and having hubs in various different areas, which I imagine is where you're heading with this. Tell me how you're approaching that sort of challenge and what some of the things you're thinking about to get that onboarding right, because it's as I say, it's the kingmaker or otherwise, I think, depending on how you get that.
I agree. I mean, honestly, we talk about it. I remember when we talked 3 years ago as well, we talked about this topic, but we talk about the company culture and ways of working a lot internally, because it is the thing that can kind of define whether you are successful or whether you fail, whether you provide a great customer experience or whether you mess up. And because we've been bootstrapped, we've been lucky. We've had some amazing people, and there are a number of superheroes that have just gone way above and beyond over the last few years.
We've known other people as well, right? And that's how a lot of your growth has been.
Yeah, and we've had a great team. Yeah. We started virtual from the outset because the business has grown through COVID. We do have offices in different parts of the world, but it's largely a virtual organisation. So you've got to work really hard to make sure functions work well together, teams work well together, and that's it's happened. Now we're sort of doubling the team. The challenge is, how do we maintain all of the strongest bits, build the scalability and the capacity of the team, and as you say, just avoid that cultural attrition and dilution. The how, I think part of it is it's finding the right people, and making sure there's a cultural sort of sense check within the hiring process is really important. Onboarding's key. So
just rewind for a second, because I think I like the idea of a cultural sense check. But tell me what that looks like for you. Is it knowing what the culture that you have and making sure there's alignment to it and being honest with them about it? Is it testing and questioning, or is it, what does it actually look like? Because it's absolutely the right thing, but it's very difficult to get right sometimes, isn't it?
And it is absolutely, it's art as well as science. I mean, you often get a feel if someone doesn't feel like they'll be a positive contributor to the business or something like that. But mechanically, we do it in a few different ways. So within a hiring process, we'll have a few peers meet the candidate as well, just to sense check it feels right, and it's less of an interview, it's more of a chat about the company, but it helps get a bit of a sense check around the
those
fit
traps
and the
are always
teamwork.
great, aren't they? I always think of it when people come into it and say, it's just a meet and greet. And I never believe for a second that one of those is a meet and greet, because it's.
But this has got to work both ways, right? Because if the company
100%.
doesn't feel right for the candidate as well, it's never going to work.
Yeah, you can't shoehorn people into roles, I think.
But it's hiring, it's the onboarding. Yeah. So again, we're really trying, and you're never always going to get it right, but try and make sure we have a great onboarding experience in the run-up. It's clear that we really care about them joining. We're excited about day one.
Tell me about what that looks like, because I think this is something I'm, again, 100% on board with, and I think it's one of the worst things done in the history of recruitment, full stop, is everyone works really, really hard to go through a process, they get the right person on board, and then they absolutely suck at getting people over the line and into the company. Tell me some of your secret sauce around that.
So I think
you probably have to think about it even more in that sort of virtual piece as well.
Well, this is it, and we're trying to continually improve. This is sort of a marginal gains thing, but again, things like in between the offer being accepted and day one, we want to make sure everything's ready, so the kit is there and working on day one. Yeah. There's no lost time and frustration, but there'll be a welcome postcard from the line manager just to let them know we're really excited about them joining, which might have the merch and kit with it. Yeah. Again, nothing extravagant, but a few small things to show we care, we're excited, and it's then about making sure there's conversations in the run-up. Looking forward to you joining next week. Here's what to expect. Day one's a good day one. Week one, all of the right meetings are lined up so people can, again, in a virtual world, orientate themselves with who's who does what, who do I need to have a good relationship with to succeed, and clear kind of working through, what do we want from you and what do you want from us in week one, in month one, in 60 days, 90 days. Yeah. Aiming to get people set up for success as quickly as possible in terms of their ability to fulfill their role and their ability to kind of bring value to the organisation. Now, again, we don't get this right every time, but it's something we are very thoughtful and conscious about and try hard at. So each time we want to get it a bit better. Again, we introduce things like a boot camp for all new starters, so we can quickly introduce them to the strategy, who's who, how does the organisation work. We're still at the scale where it's manageable. We want everyone to meet the founders in sort of as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's things like that, but again, I think what we need at this next phase is just an ongoing focus, because there is a danger of that cultural attrition. So we need to be 100% on it to make sure that doesn't happen, and actually what we end up with is a stronger rather than weaker culture as a result of the growth.
I think that thought process is an important part of it. I can think of one business who I really like, and it's got a fantastic CEO in front of it who went through a virtual business and boomed over globally over with fairly significant investment, and the market changed that they were in, and it was very, very difficult. I think they probably got a little bit complacent around the sort of growth and the story and everything like that, and it created a very difficult thing to reverse once it came backwards from it. So I think the difference of what I'm hearing is just that sort of real cognizance of what you're trying to do, and that sort of attachment to what you as a founding group have always been about, and trying to get that right as well. And talking about that founding group, I know there's a sort of change, as we talk through this sort of growth of businesses, and you're where you are there at the moment. I know it's gone from a sort of group founding group run business into now more of a board and non-execs coming in, etc., etc. How's that been for you?
Really good. We had our first, what was it, last week? Last week, I think, we had our first of the new board meetings. So we've, we obviously now have an investor around the table. We've brought in an amazing non-exec chair, Dame Jane Angadia. So she's former CEO of Virgin Money, founder of Snoop. She's got such an incredible career, and honestly, I'm really excited about it. So obviously we're changing the way we do things a little. We need to, it's really easy when you work together day in, day out, know each other so well to make decisions quite quickly. Now we need to be more conscious of which are the things we need to break out for a high quality board discussion. But yeah, we're at the early stages of this journey, and I think it's going to be a really good transition. We've got we're kind of working through the strategy together, making sure that we've got a clear view of we're all aligned on what are the big things we need to get right in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months to really deliver on the potential. And having some people in your corner who've been there, done it, significant scale, similar sorts of organisations, got more of the scars and war wounds. I mean, none of us are spring chickens. We're all at the later end of our careers, but having some real strength in your corner to kick around the more difficult discussion points it's great.
Transformation.
It's early days, but it feels like a really good transformation.
Fantastic. Well, look, I mentioned beforehand that I watched our episode a little earlier on from 3 years ago, and you weren't a million miles away from your predictions and all of that. So, we might not leave it 3 years next time. I hope not, anyway. But tell me what you think the next couple of years looks like for the business.
Well, hopefully continuing to scale with the global open banking and open finance opportunity. It will be, I think, core foundation in most markets in the coming years. But I think we'll also be helping banks to really unlock that opportunity and go way beyond just doing what the regulation asks for, and that sort of vision we talked about earlier of it becoming a real core channel for how they do business. I think we'll have extended into other sectors as well, other data sharing sectors. There's early moves on that front in a few different markets, and hopefully we will still be kind of leading as the specialist platform that really supports and kind of handles all of the global complexity around open banking and open finance. So and with that, I just hope it's as much fun as it is at the minute. It's a great group of people, a really exciting challenge, and yeah, we're all getting a buzz from it. So if we can continue on that path, I think it's going to be a great journey. It's so important that said as well. I'm really pleased you said that at the end of it, because I think sometimes people sort of really get incredibly focused on the wrong things. But I think actually having something there which you're passionate about clearly, which you love doing clearly, which is all part of that sort of process, I think it's such a core element of where it goes. And I love hearing, where it's at, what you've been doing, where it's all heading. I'm having fun listening to it, so vicariously I'm going to keep on watching and enjoying the show. Let's finish up by just saying, if there are people out there who want to get in, so let's say banks who are listening to this and saying, do you know what, I recognise that, let's get in touch. If there are people there who want to be part of this rocket ship over the course of the next couple of years, etc., what's the best way to get in touch with you, and who should be reaching out? Yeah, absolutely. So whether you bank, a technology player in the banking space that wants to enable banks to do this, whether you're a central bank, whether you're interested in joining the journey, our website's ozoneapi.com. My email address is easy. It's Huw, Huw, at ozoneapi.com. But no, please get in touch. And no, thank you, Toby.
Absolute pleasure. Listen, it's great to see you again. Thanks for coming on the show. And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.